when I started as a trainer, I was really heavy on text, right? Many information. I want to convey as much information as possible, as quickly as possible. Have you ever had the experience that you're talking and talking and you look at people's gazes and it becomes hazy and they start looking to the horizon and they are embarking on a personal journey and they are not with you anymore, right? We have been there, right? So I tried to adapt a little bit. How could I improve that? And I started incorporating visual stuff, right? They told me, yeah, you have to get with visual. And so I started using visual slides. Helps a bit, but not really. So what I saw when I introduced movement into the visual stuff, and so it's not actually only the picture that's interesting, but it's the journey to that picture. When we draw, we incorporate that. So we are combining sound, a bit of text, visual stuff, and the movement by actually drawing this. And I've seen in my trainings that this is really effective. So I'm German, I'm not Brazilian. I don't look really like a Brazilian, right? But I live in that fantastic country for more than 20 years already. So I'm kind of a little bit of Brazilian, right? I have something. I'm actually from Europe. My accent is German, but I'm born in Belgium. I studied in Germany. My father is Swedish. It's really mixed up. So this is the famous Mentimeter. I love that stuff. I love this especially because, and I'm using this in my trainings too. Why? Because it's anonymous. When you do a retrospective, and you can do this in an anonymous way, you will get honest feedback. Believe me, it can hurt sometimes, but right. When I started, so by the way, I am not a professional visual facilitator, and I'm not specially talented at anything, but I got to the level that it's okay-ish. It doesn't really matter, and that's the secret. It doesn't really matter if you're really like that guy who knows to draw. That you don't need to do that. And the secret is, so the mission, right? I would like you to define what is the mission of the Scrum Master. I phrased it mission on purpose. And it's interesting what I see. There are different ways that you can explain, of course, what the mission is, what Scrum Master does. And people usually like to define, and this is totally okay, right? To define what the Scrum Master does. Define what the mission is by explaining what the Scrum Master does. But that's not the actual mission, right? So I see a couple of you said, for example, oh, it's to coach, it's to educate, and all that. But the mission, what's actually the mission? So I see some things like, for example, well, the mission is to guide. That's one that I personally like to use as a metaphor, actually, right? Okay, good, fantastic. Can you quickly explain, in your own words, without drawing, what is the mission of the Scrum Master? Can we do this quickly? Like 15 seconds right now. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's it. Thank you, guys. So imagine that you had this conversation in an elevator. Imagine you have been hired in your company, right? And then you go, right, proudly, you want to move up, and there's this elevator, and you have the CIO stepping in together with you. And she turns to you and says, oh, so you are the new Scrum Master. Can you tell me what is actually your mission? And you have like 15 seconds. Could you do that? Okay. If you imagine now you have the same situation, it goes a little bit like that, and you encounter that person at the cafeteria of the organization, and she turns to you. Can you tell me what your mission is? Right? But this time you're going to use a napkin, right? And you could draw it like that. So imagine the same situation. You could say, for example, well, the mission the Scrum Master, it's actually a journey, right? And you take your team on that journey, right? And you're kind of a guide. Okay, if that's a journey, where to? What's the destination of that journey? Well, the destination is that here. The destination is to lead your team, to guide your team to be that dream team, to be that team, the highly effective team, the team where everybody wants to be on. The challenge is we are in the land of complexity. You know that land? Yeah, it's a strange place. And there are two important mountains that we have to cross to come to that destination. Anyone would like to guess what are the names of these two mountains?
Management?
Almost. It's the mount of self-management. So, self-management, right? We know that. If we're dealing in complexity, we're building complex products, we don't know exactly, but we know something very well. We need to harness complexity, and one of the ways to do that is by getting the team to become self-managed, right? So I'm sure that now you can guess what the name of the other mountain is. That's Mount. That's the goal, if you like. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Many things fit. The way that I like to teach, yeah, that's Mount cross-functionality, right? So we need to work as Scrum Masters on these two things. We have to lead our teams to become self-managed, right? More cross-functional. That's where we want to go. Go back to that journey, my picture, right? The picture, that nice picture of the mountains where I like to hike. How long do you think it takes to visually process that, to make sense of that? How long do you think that takes? We look at this and we make sense of it right away. So, how long do you think it would take if we had like 20, 30 words to describe that same thing? Around 6, 7, a couple of seconds. Oh, that's much, much more. So, what's the data that we have? If we look at some stats, so 70% of all our sensory input is through the eyes, it's visual. So what are our senses? Smell, touch, sound, taste, and then text processing? No. Hearing, sound, right? And text processing is not our sensory input. So we have, and that's the thing. And so understanding our brain is something that I consider crucial as a Scrum Master. We have to understand how we tick. And we have to start with our own brains, the brain of people. So he created a metaphor for our cognitive thinking. And how does it work? Well, it is actually a theater stage, right? So we have the audience, all the guys listening to what's happening, and these are our memories, our things that we can remember and all that. So, but the thinking happens on that stage, and this is like a theater stage, right? So you see, I'm not a fancy drawer, but it's all about getting the message across. So here we have our fancy actors. And this is where the play happens. This is where the thinking happens. So my question to you guys, how many actors actually fit on that stage? 10, 20? How many things can we actually think about at the same time? One. Only one? Well, that's a bit pessimistic. It's a small number, I give you that. We're talking, so based on research from Dr. Rock, it's for concepts only. So, and that means whenever we're thinking about something, we bring something on stage, right? There's a new actor joining the stage. That means one of the actors has to leave, right? Only 4. First of all, we as Scrum Masters, we want to help the team to get to their best thinking, right? We want to help them be able to think together as one team. And that means, for me, this is the metaphor is to create one big brain of these parts. So each part of that team contributes with a perspective, works together on solutions. So now what happens? We just said that when the team thinks together, we can basically only handle 4 things at the same time. So what can we do then when people start having these crazy ideas? Oh, we can do this. That's an idea. we can do that. Another idea, we can do this. So, as a Scrum Master, if you maybe have some skills, you can write down ideas as they pop up, right? And transfer them on a chart, flip chart, stuff like that. This makes people also more at ease, because you know I'm not losing an idea, it's still there. So, but the way to start, and my tip is you have to start creating your visual vocabulary. And it doesn't really matter how you represent something, right? You have to make it your own, choose something, test it, and rehearse it. So let's just start with something. So now we're actually going to draw something. So please grab your sticky. Try to come up with a way to draw a cup of coffee. How would you draw? Look how I draw this, right? It's a little bit tri-dimensional, right? So that's my cup of coffee. You can add a little bit of coffee, if you like, right? And then you can introduce a little bit of movement. Oh, the problem is not so much movement. Right. So how do you go from here? Now, first of all, if we have our first word of our vocabulary, we can now depict a cup of coffee, right? What else could we use it for? A break. We are used to that, right? A break. It's kind of almost a common symbol for that. A coffee break. It's a break, right? So, and that's not a coffee, right? So that's something. So you can start making connections.